thanks to the City of BRIMBANK across our neighbourhood and the world, Soul Dive with AD, Roshani and Lydia on BRIMBANK Live on Live FM.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Soul Dive. You're listening to Soul Dive. Yes, I repeated it. I am your host, Lydia Chesama, and we have AD and Roshani, your co-hosts, with you as well today. Today's our actual wrap-up show for the year. Can't believe we've found ourselves here. We're definitely going to just kind of like reflect and discuss what our year's been like. Just wrap up and set a really positive tone moving into 2021. How are you, ladies?
I'm good. I'm very excited for this wrap-up show. And also I feel like there was a point a couple of months ago where I was like, 2021 is not going to solve all our problems. But now I'm just like, get me out of 2020. I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to go.
I feel the exact same way. I'm like, I will not be revisiting 2020 for a long, long time to come.
Like, what did Xavier say? He said sometimes you repress or suppress memories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm a suppressor. All right, I'm a known suppressor, and out of sight, out of mind. I just close my eyes and I'm like, go away.
Yeah, it never happened.
Keep it moving. So that's exactly what I'm going to do about this year.
Yeah. Well, I guess we've got a well planned out conversation today. We're going to cover the highs and the lows. We're going to start with somewhere in the middle. So I want to ask you, ladies, what has been your biggest challenge this year?
I would say,
go for it.
Sorry, Roshani.
Oh, so eager to respond, ladies.
So many challenges. That was my main point, like this whole conversation. But no, I think the biggest one was just not being around family, to be honest. I think that took a toll, especially with how difficult this year has been, having that shoulder to lean on in terms of family, being out of state, and as well the other way around, them leaning on me. There was so many things that were happening in terms of my family. I've already mentioned that my brother had an accident that, it was life-threatening, and I wasn't able to go see him, so that was devastating. I still haven't seen him. It's been like 6 months. There's been funerals that I wasn't able to get to. So just having that and trying to remain supportive from so far away was really difficult, and not being there for my parents, for my siblings, as I usually am. I usually jump on the first plane and be there when they need me. So it was really hard this year. Yeah, that was my biggest one.
And I guess COVID really took away that power from us, that ability rather to actually just get up and go or be there for family. It just completely demobilized us. So that would have been a huge challenge. And on top of that, COVID was a year that really showed us that we need that support. We need emotional support. To not have that would have been extremely challenging. So well done, AD, for getting through such.
Came out on top.
Yeah. I mean, that must have been so difficult considering a lot of people who are, with their families still have struggled, and they've had those close connections and that support. So I can only imagine how that would have been for you and a lot of other people being so far away from your family and your support group. I think, for me, there were a lot of issues that I kind of would always sweep under the rug. And I feel like 2020 really brought those issues out, like my work-life balance and productivity and just overall sometimes mental health issues that I think I've just been so busy to deal with. And COVID has really kind of, thrown a spanner in the works and made me slow down and actually have to deal with those things, which has been confronting. But, that definitely was one of my biggest challenges of this year, having to deal with the things that I've always just said that I was too busy to deal with.
Yeah.
Honestly, we've been running around and usually we have work and life to distract us from sitting with ourselves, really sitting with ourselves. So it was definitely a confronting year for a lot of people. And I think that's why a lot of mental health issues did start rising above the surface for a lot of people, because usually it is out of sight, out of mind type thing. But when you've got nowhere to go, can't go and eat your feelings away at a restaurant, you know, while you're laughing with friends, pretending everything is okay.
Or party at the club, you know, for whoever,
So.
for whoever does that. No, that is so true. Okay, well, wow. I think that, it was a forced, that lockdown definitely forced us, to introspect and just confront the things that we don't really have the time sometimes to confront in this fast-paced lifestyle that we live. I think it really dawned on me that we live in such a fast-paced world, and I was only able to really deep that when things slowed down, because then we had that perspective, you know. Anyways, I will move on to talking about my biggest challenge this year. My biggest challenge this year, in all honesty, would have to be my separation. So I had a relationship breakup at the end of March, which would have been about 2 or 3 weeks into coronavirus happening. And I would say, because for context, for the listeners, that was my first serious relationship despite my age. So I was never really in a serious relationship as a young very much enjoyed my singleness and my independence, but did fall in love with my best friend who I worked with. And we had a really beautiful relationship, but we had to walk away from each other out of love. It was the right thing to do, and it was the hardest thing to do. And I would say that the biggest challenge from that was actually just detaching from a best friend. I've never really had to do that before, especially when there wasn't necessarily a huge thing wrong per se, or let me not say that. Our relationship didn't work, but we didn't dislike each other, or there was no hate for each other. So it was really tough, really tough. But I think through that challenge, I was able to realize that life, and we'll get to that, you know, the realizations and the lessons and stuff, but coming out on top of that had taught me a lot, which is really cool.
And sometimes it's a lot easier to just stay in something that you're familiar with. So good for you for realizing, you know, it's time to move on, and leaving it with love and not hate. You know, because doesn't always have to be a negative situation that makes you leave. Sometimes you just realize that you need to, spread your wings, you know, and learn yourself.
And honor the other person, based off your journeys. And I think I'm really proud of us for honoring each other's journeys, actually enacting what we really truly understood about each other. And I do see a power in that. It's just also recognize that a lot of people, because instantly I just gained new perspective about things because of this new experience. I was like, oh, first of all, some people get cheated on. I didn't properly deep that, because I'm already dealing with so much pain from just having to detach from someone, let alone, you know, being really hurt by them in some sort of significant way. So I guess there's a whole spectrum of breakups, and I'm just pretty blessed.
I separated from a similar situation around the same time as you, but I was happy. I was dancing. I was like, woo, I got out. I got out. I was trying to figure out, oh my God, is this it for me? And then I did the harder thing, because usually, you know, I'm there for the other person, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to hurt their feelings and whatnot. Nope, not working for me. I gotta go. Goodbye.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like also, as you were saying, Lydia, it is sometimes the harder thing to do when there's not some big significant thing that's happened that is kind of your big reason to leave. And I think I can totally relate to that, because my kind of first long-term relationship kind of ended the same way that you did, and where we both kind of just walked away with a lot of love, rather than sticking around because it was familiar and then kind of leading to something, that resentment, and then taking it to a place where we'd break up out of kind of hate and so I do think it takes a lot of maturity and power to do that. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Well done. Appreciate it, guys. So the next question that I have here is, what has been your biggest realization? And I guess that this realization could have stemmed potentially from a challenge that you experienced, or it could have just been a pure observation that you made that was profound for you. So what has been your biggest realization, girls?
I think for me, it does kind of stem from those challenges of kind of all these issues arising. But I think definitely in the work that I do and the spaces that I'm in, they become very, competitive and work oriented, where you're always just producing work and you're just producing work like time and time again. And being able to slow down for me has been a huge realization, and like taking a break is not a bad thing. And I think that I was in a culture or a space, which, academia still is, it's still always that, where, you're not meant to take breaks. Breaks are not the greatest thing for your career, or they're not the greatest thing for your trajectory. But I think that for me, I've just realized that these breaks are important and time for myself is needed, to just focus on who I am and what I need to do, and the personal things that I have in my life. And I think that sometimes your professional life just becomes who you are. And I think that for me, that realization of, hold on, like that's separate to me, and I really need to look after myself and who I am, apart from like who I am as a worker. And so I think that's probably, the biggest realization that I had this year.
And I genuinely feel like when you do take time for yourself and, learn yourself as a person outside of your job, that you produce better work, because I'm sick of the same thing. People are doing the exact same thing. So when you are your own person, you have the ability to bring something new to the table,
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
So that's really awesome. My realization is that nothing is fixed. Things are always changing. Any moment, anything can change. Things, get turned upside down. I mean, COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
COVID happened.
It's very humbling.
Super random. And whether it's, change in friendships, change in career, this year has just kind of pushed a lot of people to start thinking outside the box, and figure out, how to do things in a new way. And if you couldn't keep up, you fell behind. So nothing is fixed. And the sooner we realize that and accept that, the better we become in just being versatile and being able to do whatever we want at any given moment.
Yeah, I think that there is beauty in the fact that nothing is fixed, because change can be so great if you adapt to it and you're open to it. So I think that it is great when we look at history and all the things that could have been fixed and in place but are not, and that has allowed people to be more free and more open. And I think that is a really great thing if you change your perspective of seeing that non-fixedness as a good thing and a beautiful thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and kind of like, I think picking back off UAD, my one was that life goes on, guys. And I guess that's related to your one, which is like nothing is fixed, right? Like an emotion or a period of time that you might be enduring that might be tough isn't fixed. So like there are better days, or there are more compatible people for you, or there's just more opportunities. There's just an opportunity to always change your situation. So I think there is absolutely beauty in that, because it would be very depressing if it wasn't that. If things were fixed, it wouldn't be great at all. So I've definitely realized that, and I think I realized that through my own experience of going through really, really upset too. I'm okay, and I've accepted where I'm at, and I have peace with it. The world is such a big place, and I think that's something that I've really realized. And I agree that with you, AD, that we are resourceful. I think it's innate to our being as humans that we're adaptable by nature if we allow it, and we're very resourceful.
And it can be scary, but it's usually, beautiful things come out of it.
Definitely. I've also really realized that how like words are powerful. That's something that I've really, really really truly seen, I guess. I do believe that we speak life and death from our tongue. I believe that there's a spiritual atmosphere around us that we don't necessarily see with our natural eyes. And I believe that every time we say something, whether positive or negative, I believe that things are being actioned in our environment. And like there was one story just before we go to a break. A friend of mine was telling me about her auntie who gave birth. recently, and her auntie died for 15 minutes during the pregnancy.
Wow.
In the end, yeah, they had to cut her open to get the baby out. And she's traumatized. She doesn't actually want to have kids anymore, which is understandable. But she did express to my friend that 3 weeks leading up to her pregnancy or giving birth, she would Google a lot about the chances of dying in death or the chances of this going wrong. She was just giving a lot of energy to that negativity. And it's very interesting that that happened, because it's not even as if it's a common thing to happen, right?
Yeah.
Dying for 15 minutes, like why?
That's a long time.
Birth.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we really do give energy to things, and then they grow.
It
So I think,
manifests.
yeah, you manifest things. So I'm being more mindful of that going into 2021. I just want to speak life and positivity over
That's
myself
it.
and things around me, you know?
I did a lot of research around this, and it was like something to do with metaphysics, you know, that people heal just through
Declaring.
yeah, pretty much. You know, it's all about the mindset. Like your brain can literally change your body chemistry from the way you think, you know, and what you will.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
and you attract that goodness, that good energy, or you do attract that bad energy. So I definitely think that that is, spot on.
Yeah, so that's been some realizations. But hey, we'll be back with our biggest lessons of the year. Stay tuned. You're listening to Soul Dive. I am your host Lydia, and you're joined by my co-hosts AD and Roshani. Welcome back to Soul Dive. I'm your host Lydia, joined by my co-hosts AD and Roshani. We're doing a wrap up for 2020. This is our last episode for this year. We've just been chatting about our biggest challenges, our biggest realizations, and we're about to move on to what our biggest lesson has been or lessons have been this year. So we'll kick it off with Roshani. Roshani, what's been your biggest lesson this year?
So I think kind of going off the same vibe as my realizations and my challenges, definitely my biggest lesson is taking care of yourself is an investment, but it's something that you have to do. And I know that a lot of people have experienced quite heightened mental health issues. They've had to face things that they've never faced before. And I think that we need to put time and effort into taking care of ourselves so that when we do kind of face that roadblock, we have all the tools and the resources to just be able to tackle it head on. And I think that that's come through even through the shows that we've done and the guests that we've had on. That always seems to be like the root of a lot of the conversations that we have, whether we've spoken to Xavier about intergenerational trauma, or we've spoken to Katinda and Dola speaking about empowerment, or even the diverse guests that we had for our spirituality show. It's always about kind of taking time for yourself and making that investment with yourself, because it kind of doesn't matter what it is, if you're connected to yourself and who you are, and you know what to do in those situations because you're prepared and you've built that strength, then I think that anything is possible. So I definitely think that has been my biggest lesson. And whether that's investing in therapy or investing in a life coach or investing in really great friends and a support crew around you, those things are really important, and just investing in yourself time-wise as well. So I think that that has been my biggest lesson.
I couldn't agree more. Honestly, that's been the biggest thing is self-care. We forget about ourselves so much. And I think mine kind of rolls on from yours. So my lesson is being kind. Being kind to everyone you meet, because we don't know what the struggles are. And it's been so tough this year. Some people have really had a hard time, and you don't always see it smack bang in the face. So for us to just be kind to whoever we see, to whoever we meet, even if you don't necessarily like them, there's no reason to go out of your way to be malicious or anything like that. And being kind to yourself, that's the biggest one. So it's a lot easier for me to be kind to other people. But I realized, I wasn't giving myself the same kind of love back, and it really started taking a toll. Being kind to yourself, taking care of yourself, doing nice things for yourself, and just stopping and appreciating where you are in life, instead of always seeing where you should be, was a big one for me. And the burnout is real. and how many young people have committed
Yeah.
suicide,
Yeah.
you know, because maybe we could have prevented it, you know, by smiling that day or saying hello, or seeing something wrong and saying something.
Yeah.
Anything could have happened. So a lot of people have felt alone or not cared for, not loved. And we can give that vibe off to anyone, to a stranger in the street. You know, we can always show love to everyone around us. And I think it is our job to do that, because we don't know whose life we're saving at the end of the day, you know, but you need to save your own life too by being kind to yourself, not relying on other people to do that for you.
Yeah, I think it's important to be kind to yourself first, because that sets the standard for how you'll then be treated and also treat others. So I think if you don't set that standard with yourself first, then you run the risk of overexerting yourself in terms of just giving, giving, giving. And I think I remember a friend of mine made a funny comment when someone had said some nasty things about her, and she's like, who are you to talk to me like that? I don't even talk to me like that. You know what I mean?
Love that.
And that was so powerful, because it's like, like if I'm not even talking to myself in a certain way, why would I accept it from the outside, sort of thing? So, and I also think that there's a difference between being kind and nice, and that's something that I've learned, is that you don't have to be nice necessarily to people, because in a way that kind of you can appease people, you can kind of overexert yourself or do too much sometimes, but kindness is a good standard, sort of thing. And being nice, sometimes you do too much, I would say. So I really agree with those. Mine is very much related to the mental, in terms of mental strength, and I think that this stems from my experience of the last few years dealing with my back injury, or my spinal injury. My biggest lesson, and this becomes more apparent and more apparent every day, is mind over matter, people. Mind over matter. Like I used to feel so justified in my pain, because I absolutely was, and I would express it. And this ties into the word's a powerful thing. This ties into so many things that we've already touched on. But I realized that, you know, I was doing myself a disservice to even overly indulge in that. And I realized that I had to actually get to a point where I'm strong enough to even just declare otherwise, even if I'm feeling pain, and to even just like speak my mind and my body into, like, you know, more health, or I'm feeling better. And that just it was so hard sometimes, because I'm like, I just want to cry. Like I just want to say I'm really going through it. But I realized that didn't help me more than I really wanted it to. And so I've gotten to a point now where I have to be strong enough to just really push my mind to not, and I just realized the mind is so powerful, that your body follows your mind. So I keep that in mind, as well as the fact that, you know, health is indeed wealth. That's something that I think I also really freaked out. Like when coronavirus hit, like I started to assess myself, be like, how healthy am I actually? Like, what food am I eating? And I took the time through like our lockdowns to just like actually spend time in the kitchen. It's like I can cook, but I just never really did, because of my lifestyle, in and out of the house, like all of that. But just being more intentional about what I put in my body has been really,
and I can attest to that. You know, it's food for thought, and whatever you feed your mind is what comes into existence. And I'm firsthand a big believer in, you know, affirmations and things like that to really take you to wherever you want to go. But like Roshani said earlier, it's an investment. For me, I usually wait till I'm completely down in the dumps, you know, self-deprecating left, right, and center, like not believing in myself one bit. And then I'm like, all right, it's time for the meditation and the affirmations to come out, guys. And then a few weeks later, I'm feeling so much better. I'm feeling on top of the world. And I stopped doing the work. And then you find yourself sliding back. You know?
It's all about the maintenance, I think. And as you were saying, Lydia, it's not just the words that you feed yourself, but it's, you know, the food that you feed yourself, and that community care that you give yourself. It's not just like one aspect that we need to work on, but we need to work on these various aspects all the time, not just, you know, as you were saying, AD, when you're down in the dumps, you know, but that's really important. And I think it's finding also the balance between being gentle with yourself, but also knowing that your mind is strong and that you are strong. It's that balancing act, because, you know, being too gentle with yourself can sometimes mean that you can put yourself in those kind of self-deprecating spaces, but it's also knowing that you have strength, and kind of the balance of that gentleness and strength.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so, but that's not all. Today we're going to continue to talk about what we're most proud about, our personal achievements, and then we'll move on to observations that we have. We will just do the what you're most proud about now, and then we'll go to a break. So, what are you guys most proud about this year in terms of a personal achievement of yours?
I think for me, honestly, just getting through the damn year.
Yay!
And
Honestly, that's
for
literally
me,
what I wrote down.
Yeah, just getting through the whole year and just being able to just exist through it. And also kind of reflecting back, I've had some great opportunities, but I think that amongst all that, just being able to get through it has been the biggest achievement.
Yeah.
Facts. I second that. Making it through 2020, you know, holding on to my sanity for dear life. You know, it could have gone either way. If I'm being perfectly honest, like I smile a lot, but there's lots going on up there, and lots has happened in my life. So I had to really drag myself through this and tell myself, like, there's lots to look forward to. You just have to get through it. And that was also hard because I'm always thinking about the next thing, you know. I'm never satisfied with where I'm at, you know. I'm always like, I could be doing the next thing. So just to stop and say, you're doing good, like you're standing here today, be proud of that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's right. I think there's so many things to be proud of, and I could really just third you guys on that and be like, yep. But for the sake of saying something different, I will say that I'm really proud of finally diving in to that which I love and want to see myself doing more of. And just I guess I'm proud of you know, being true to myself, because it's been, once again, everything about this year has kind of stemmed from my last few years, and I feel like that with everything in my life. But whether it's my injury or the fact that I've finally you know, mustered up the confidence to leave my law degree, even though I wasn't sure what was kind of awaiting me at the end of that road. I'm proud of being true to myself. I'm proud of being confident in the fact that despite the fact that I wasn't following a conventional path, I would figure it out. And yeah, I guess I'm seeing the fruits of that, and that's just, I'm doing these things that naturally, if I continue and continue to give it my all, I'll see more fruits. So I'm just happy, like I'm in the right place. I feel like I'm on a path that I'm really proud of and really genuinely passionate about. So yeah.
And I think COVID gave us a lot of opportunities to do passion projects, you know. It gave us a lot of time to start looking at different alternatives on how to engage and how to be better citizens. And even with this radio opportunity, you know, where we have the platform to talk about things that matter to us, you know, worked out really different, but it gave us an opportunity to really start thinking about deeper issues like mental health, like spirituality, all the things that we've had to kind of sit and start looking at. You know, we didn't have time to just kind of let it pass over our heads.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, it's been really good in that sense. And I'm sure that there are so many other things that you guys have to be proud of. Anyways, we're going to go to a break. We'll be back. We'll be talking about some observations that we've made about a few things. So yeah, we'll be back we'll be back after the break. You're listening to Soul Dive. I'm your host Lydia, and you're joined by AD and Roshani. Welcome back to Soul Dive. This is your third segment. I know you guys are going to miss us. We've got 2 more segments and then we'll be done for the year. So you're currently listening to our 2020 wrap-up show. I'm your host Lydia, and I'm joined by AD and Roshani. We have just been touching base about our biggest challenges, realizations, and lessons this year, as well as our personal achievements that we're proud of. And we're now just going to move on to observations. We all come from a very sort of social justice oriented background. You know, we often analyze and, you know, make commentary on certain things happening in the world. And I'm just interested to hear about certain observations that we've made about our environment and our society. So yeah, because by the way, I find you girls very insightful. I love your minds, and I just want to pick them a little bit in this segment. So what's something that you guys have observed about our generation? I did say in brackets, it's people, but you might have understood that question differently and as a result answered it differently, and I'm open to those answers. So bring them on.
Right. I think that when I think of our generation and its people, particularly within this time, I think about the resilience and pushing for difference and being innovative. And that's really how I see our generation and the generation coming up. Even when I think of like the amazing talent that we have on like BRIMBANK Live, you know, just the insightfulness and the ability to speak about these huge issues, and also producing such great work week in and week out. And I see that within our generation, whether that's jumping on different passion projects or doing things that mean a lot to them or doing things for the community. That's kind of how I see our generation. And it makes me really proud to be part of this generation coming through, because we are kind of thinking very differently about the world and the way that things are. And so for me, that's kind of how I see the generation and its people within it.
Really good answer. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Roshani just keeps stealing my words because resilient was the big one that I put there.
AD's going first next. All right.
Right?
Can't take all the good answers.
Resilient but fragile is what I wrote.
Yeah.
Resilient but fragile.
Yeah, fragile for sure. In this politically correct time that we're living in.
Yeah, but I've also been so proud to see young people leading change, you know, whether it's climate change, you know, the BLM movement, which is huge. The world is changing, and you know, it's young people. Young people are the future. So I really love the trajectory in which people are going and the kind of mindset that people have in terms of justice and just being together. Because I think a lot of people in this generation, the younger generation, have grown up in a multicultural society, and these things are so normal to them. So they're really shocked and confused when they see so much racism and just, you know, blatant abuses of power. And they're choosing to speak up at this time, which has been really awesome. But I also think, you know, the mental health stuff has been really huge for young people. And, you know, my parents' generation, when I'm like, oh, I'm really stressed and anxious or depressed or whatever, I was like, what?
Yeah.
You're young. You've got nothing to be stressed about. Like us, the older generation, we've gone through so much and we're still here. Like, what are you talking about? And it's always minimized for young people. And I think this year really showcased the fact that we can't keep putting it in the back foot, that it's so important to learn to educate ourselves about and to let people know that it's okay to be going through stuff, and then kind of teaching them how to work on it, as opposed to saying, put it away, you know, you've got nothing to worry about, put it away.
Yeah, I love, AD, how you spoke about that resilience, but also fragility, because I think that sometimes resilience can be seen as strength, and sometimes that can be taken for granted a lot, particularly with the younger generation. And so I think that it's seeing that resilience, but also understanding that people are still people and they're still fragile. And, you know, you can show a lot of resilience and a lot of strength in particular spaces, but that doesn't mean that you're strong in every sense of the way, and that you're strong all the time. You know, sometimes you have to be fragile and you have to kind of let your guard down in that regard. So I definitely like those two kind of things put together, because I think that it kind of encapsulates everything really, really well.
Yeah, that's true. The complexity of humans as well. I would say that what I've recognized or observed about our generation is that we're really hungry to build a life for ourselves that we envision from a really pure place, just purely out of like, you know, genuine interest or want. And I think obviously we have to attribute that to the age that we live in terms of the new opportunities that exist in this new way of functioning. But also I just feel as if our generation has really witnessed the success from people who have kind of gone against the grain and try to secure a certain lifestyle for themselves. And I think our increased visibility and awareness of how other people are doing things and how they've reached their point of success has been really beneficial for our generation. You know, it ties into the conversation about representation in the sense that when you see something, you feel encouraged to be that. But in this case, I just feel as if our increased visibility of how the world works has translated into an increased understanding of how it works. And with that understanding, we're able to really just do more. And I think that our generation are go-getters. And it's really inspiring to watch. And it's almost hard to not keep up with that sort of momentum, I would say. Anyways, moving on from that one, what's something that you guys have observed about our society? And this is more systematically speaking. This can be anything.
Let's see if we've got the same answer, Roshani. For me,
You go first.
My biggest observation has been that the class divide is real.
Yeah.
You know, usually we attribute these things to colonization and to immigration and things that have happened so far in the past that, you know, makes it hard for us to catch up or for minorities to catch up. But COVID came for all of us indiscriminately. And yet still there's a class divide in that. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. You know, the Flemington Flats and how people were treated, how Asian Australians were abused for a long time. Even African Australians, you know, I've heard so many stories about them being abused in transport or spat on, you know, and blamed for COVID. And it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, how did we make this disease, this global pandemic, still about race and class? Like, it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, true. I think that class very much the reality of class stays consistent through any time that the world is going through. And like you said, I remember hearing the color therapist, who has actually changed her name now, I remember hearing her on a live with someone, and they were talking about the intersections of COVID. And they were saying how, for example, they were really alerting me to the reality that is, say, a woman who lives in a small apartment with 6 children, and whereby, you know, 6 of those house members go to different locations for different work, is very different to someone who lives by themselves and is able to order Uber Eats in. Do you know what I mean? Like, the risk that they actually expose themselves to is completely different, and that actually boiled down from class to begin with. So even that, it's like your exposure level to the dangers of COVID could have been dependent, or probably were dependent, on where you kind of ranked in class. So yeah, absolutely, that reality dawned on me this year as well.
Yeah, I definitely think that along with what you two have both said, the inequalities for me this year have been highlighted and have stood out. And I think that they've always been there. It's just that they've really kind of come to service for a lot of people who have not been able to see things in this way. But the fact that we are all impacted by things so differently, and there are people out there that are impacted you know, on a far worse scale than most of us are. And I think that, you know, we've seen that through the Black Lives Matter movement, through George Floyd's murder, you know, even here, you know, when we covered the, you know, Flemington Flats, we've seen how people are treated and impacted differently through this pandemic. And I think that sometimes it does take these really huge global things for these things to kind of come to surface and come to light for a lot of people. But I think it's also about realizing that and then acting, and not just realizing these things and thinking that these are, the way that things are, and we just have to deal with it because it's the way that things have been. It's about kind of moving forward with that and being like, okay, what are we going to do about it? Because systems are there to be challenged and there to be changed.
Definitely. What has been an observation that you've made about our society, Roshani?
So I feel like definitely the inequalities, for me, that is something that I have definitely made the observation of, but I think that I always kind of knew it was something that was there. The inequalities of how people, as I said, can be impacted in such different ways. And we've kind of had, when we had, Tigris on the show, we spoke about that, that we are all kind of in the same storm, but we all have different boats and we all have different resources to weather that storm. And so I think that COVID's brought that to light, and 2020's brought that to light. And whether that's race, whether that's class, whether that's gender, we've seen how different communities can really be exposed to different things in different ways. Just recently the trans community going through what they're going through at the moment, or whether it's race or whether it's any type of class. It's definitely something that for me has really been highlighted and made me even hungrier to kind of go out and do that work, and to make it more obvious to people that there's things here that need to kind of be challenged in a particular way.
Yeah, that's really good. Wow. I would say that I remember I've made a lot of observations, but the one that I was shocked about and I found myself talking about a lot is the observation that we have completely different priorities in this Western world to what our home countries have, in the non-Western world. And I think one of the things that I thought about was during stage 4 lockdown, I might have spoken to you guys about this, but you were allowed to have a sexual partner, as you guys might know. But obviously you weren't allowed to visit family, right? That was during that period where you couldn't go beyond the 5K radius. And I just found that super interesting because I remember a friend telling me about a friend who went to Geelong, like crossed the Geelong border for a Tinder date, right? And I'm like, meanwhile, I could have a grandmother who lives 20 minutes away, who's dying or who's sick, but I wasn't allowed to see her. And I just found that extremely interesting and also a bit disappointing because personally it doesn't align with my values, right? And I realized that in a country, say in Africa, the priorities would be very different. I'm sure the setup would actually enable you to look after and have the company of family and the other
save the Tinder dates for after COVID.
Exactly. And it's not even as if I'm here saying that people shouldn't have been given that right. It's more that if you're going to give that right, I would have thought that it was a high
family
priority
first.
for you to exactly. And what I found humorous was like the website or whatever was like, just wear a mask. But it's like, fam, is anyone wearing a mask during the D? Come on now.
Don't make out.
Is that working?
You can do everything else, but don't make out. Wear your mask.
Unrealistic expectations or anyways, I just found that really interesting. Lol, Ralph scratching his head.
Poor male producer that has to listen to us talk about weird stuff every week. You're doing well.
Literally.
I had one more thing.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
Big. It's that Australia can live a socialist lifestyle. We're always talking about being broke. We can't help the poor. We can't what. This year, all this money came out of nowhere and everybody was, getting paid all of a sudden. So we can definitely have a socialist government in which we can help everyone around us. But
I don't agree with that. I think that it's not sustainable. I think that it worked for a period of time, but I couldn't imagine us continuing to function like that. I mean, you can disagree back, and
we can shift a few things to make it work. If we really wanted it to work, we could. But obviously, nobody wants that. The rich want to stay rich, and whatnot. So it's never going to happen. But also the way we treated international students, international immigrants. There was nothing for them. There was no safety net. Like so many people had a really, really, really tough time during that time.
Yeah, and it just does. It reminds you that there are clearly really huge benefits and like advantages to being a citizen of this country. And when you're not, you genuinely have like almost zero like protection. We don't have much time, ladies, so we're going to move on. Just real quick, what do you believe we need more of in order to progress as a society? I imagine a one word to up to a sentence answer, and then we're going to go to a break.
I think for me, in order to just like exist, compassion and kindness, but I also think to progress, radical change, and pushing and resisting and critiquing. I think for me, those two things, because you can't just be kind and be nice and be compassionate and think that we can progress with that. We need to have that alongside that pushing and that resisting and that change.
Yeah, beautiful.
And rolling off that, education to have the tools to speak up and to push back when time comes. Education around mental health, education around, you know, the social system, and just standing up for your own rights, like what you believe in, instead of going with everybody else. So if you see something, say something, and you're only as confident as what you feel like you know. So education.
Exactly. I absolutely agree with that. And I think, you know, knowledge is power, but knowledge is only power when it's enacted, you know. I think rewarding soft skills, like in society, I believe that we need to reward people who are emotionally intelligent, compassionate, all of these things, rather than punish them, because sometimes, depending on which corner you end up in society, you can be punished for being those things. And I think in this capitalism society that we live in, it's very much rewarded when you relish in other sort of things like greed and a hunger for power and hunger for status and sort of things. So I think if we find a way to reward other things like emotional intelligence and compassion, then naturally we would just be better. We'll be back. We're going to wrap up soon, but when we come back from the break, we're just going to express what we appreciate about each other, our dynamic, and our direction for Soul Dive moving into 2021. So stick around. You're listening to Soul Dive. I'm your host Lydia, and you're joined by AD and Roshani. Welcome back, everyone, for our final segment of Soul Dive. This is our 2020 wrap-up show. You're joined by me, your host, Lydia, and AD and Roshani, your other host. We have been talking about our biggest everything, our biggest challenge, our biggest realizations, our biggest lessons, what we're most proud of, observations that we've made about our generation, its people, our system, and what we believe we need more of in society to progress. Wrapping up, we wanted to just appreciate each other and kind of enact, I guess, our understanding that words are powerful, and just spend some time talking about what we appreciate about each other and this dynamic. So ladies, time to get all cute with each other. What do we appreciate about our dynamic?
I think the one thing that I love is that we complement each other really, really well. And I think that even though we kind of do agree on a lot of things, and I think that that's really beautiful because we kind of come from similar upbringings and being like, you know, third culture kids. And I think that that is really great. But I also love that we do have slight differences that we can chat on and we can have open conversations about. But I really do love our dynamic in terms of it being really complementary and us being able to complement each other, not just with opinions, but just with the way that we kind of delve into Soul Dive. I love it.
Definitely. Yeah. I love having three different perspectives, even though, like you said, we do agree on a lot of things. Just the way we come to these agreements are all different. Our different walks of lives really shapes how we think about things. And I find it really interesting week in and week out to see what you guys have to say about our topics. You know, I hear myself talk a lot and I'm like, boring. But you guys, I'm just like, yes, this gives me a lot to think about. I never looked at it that way. So it's been really awesome. And just the energy, Lydia, you've got awesome energy that just keeps everyone going. Roshani, I always look forward to your summations. They're perfect. I try to say the exact same thing. I use 100 nonsensical words that ends up not making sense. And then within a sentence or two, Roshani's just wrapped it up really beautifully, put a bow on it. I'm like, that's what I meant.
She puts a bow on it.
I'm extra like that. Doing the mostest.
So true. I love it. Yeah, I would agree with both of you. I would say I really appreciate how effortless it is for us to get along. And I truly mean that, like it's effortless. And I appreciate how between the three of us, there's a broad amount of topics that we've really covered through our studies and through our life experience. And I think that that just contributes to what, you know, we bring to the table together. I like our mutual interest in social justice. And yeah, also like the fact that we're all babies in this new industry and we're learning this thing together, because I do believe that it's not necessarily about the destination, but about your journey. And I'm truly enjoying this journey with you guys. So yeah, I also wonder, to get even more corny, let's just do it. One by one, I want to go around and say what we appreciate about each other individually. So anyone can start us off.
All right, I'll start us off. Okay, so when I kind of think about like what I admire about both of you, I always think about people and how they're present in my life. And I kind of think about it in terms of like energy or like elements of nature. So like for me, Lydia is like light, you know, you just have this positive, radiant energy. And it's so contagious and infectious. And I love that, you know, you light up a room and you just bring this energy to our shows that I absolutely love. And AD, to me, you're fire. There's that warmth and comfort. You know, I feel like I can kind of rant to you about anything and you'll listen, but there's also that gusto and that fieriness and that passion. And so that's kind of how I see you, and that's something that I admire about both of you.
Oh, I love
That's
that.
so sweet. I don't know if we can top that.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, no, but honestly though, I've just loved getting to know the both of you guys. Like that was the biggest, you know, one of the biggest highlights of this year is just having the opportunity to get to know you guys. But Roshani, I just love your calm energy. Like you've got a lot of opinions, but the way you deliver things is always so well put together, and it's hard for people not to listen to a reasonable sounding person like yourself. You know what I mean? You can really convey your message in a beautiful way. Sometimes I feel like I'm aggressive and try and shove it down people's throats, even if we're saying the same thing and people are like, no, step back. So I've learned a lot from that in trying to sit and kind of process before speaking. And yeah, that's something that you effortlessly just do every week. I don't know if it's PhD training, but I'm really excited to call you Dr. Roche, you know, when that happens as well. We're going to have a doctor in our show, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And Lydia.
Oh, right.
Yeah, let me
We can't forget about you.
Yeah, it's that energy. Like, I feel like you're just there for people. You make time, even though we're all so busy and sometimes we get wrapped up in our own lives. You always stop and check in with people, and you're always there to listen. And there hasn't been a conversation that's been uncomfortable, you know, where I say, oh, I can't discuss this with Lydia. So the way that you sit, and even if it's something that you don't necessarily agree with, you always have time to listen and try to understand other people's perspectives and say, yeah, okay, that's interesting. I don't agree with you, but that's really interesting to hear. So I love that. It makes me comfortable to speak to you about whatever I'd like to speak to you about. And, you know, there's always some random things that come up. So it's been good just having someone there that I know doesn't necessarily always have the same opinions, but is happy to at least try and understand.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Oh, wow. I'll say, so starting off with Roshani, yeah, I do really appreciate how grounded you are. And I think that when someone's so grounded, and naturally because we work in this environment together, I guess I benefit from that energy that you have, because I'm quite a, you know, I don't know what the word is, but that sort of person. I'm all over the place. I also, I really appreciate how meticulous you are in articulating yourself. Like AD has said, I think that you really managed to either articulate or express what you're thinking, or really speak back to the person what they were saying, which is really cool, because through that I feel understood, I feel heard, and it's I also think that you're really emotionally intelligent, and I appreciate that. I would say that for the both of you. You've both checked in on me in times where I haven't really said anything, but it's been clear that, you know, I've needed someone to check in on me. So I appreciate that. AD, I will say, I love how charismatic you are. I feel like I'm just purely, like, I'm always entertained by you, but at the same time, I'm always thinking with you because you're constantly saying really intelligent or really insightful things through your charisma and through your humor, which I really, really enjoy. So personally, I just love being around you. Like, I absolutely love being around you, AD. Also, I don't want to shove you in the corner of that strong Black woman, but I really do appreciate how strong you are. And this doesn't mean that you're made of steel,
Yes,
but
I
I
am.
do. But it just means that I've seen you at low points, and it's about the way you've overcome those moments have been really, I guess, inspiring for me. Yeah, and I've just watched you pull yourself out of some really, really low moments in a way where you re-acknowledge your purpose in life, you positively affirm yourself, and it's just really powerful. So I feel inspired by you, but I also just feel really safe with you in the sense that I can know that I'm going to have a good time. I know my brain's going to feel active. It's just, yeah, really cool.
That's really nice. Thanks, Lydia.
No, you're good. So we're going over time, but we're going to finish off with setting the tone right for 2021. So my question is, I've got two questions. What do you guys envision and hope for Soul Dive next year? And what's some words of encouragement that we can offer for our listeners as we wrap up this year?
For me, like we all said, we started the show to kind of get a feel of how we were together as a team. And it's been really great. So for next year, I just want to do this bigger and better, have more guests, talk about really big topics, and just be super intentional with what we're trying to do and where we're trying to go with this show, because I think the possibilities are endless, depending on what we want out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely more in-depth discussions, more debates, more amazing guests. I think that those are the three things that I can't wait to get stuck into in Soul Dive during 2021.
Yeah, I would say that just as we were speaking about it, we touched on it on air, but also off air, that manifesting our year moving forward, I really just want to declare like big things for us, because I do really see us in really big places. And I also thank our producer Ralph for
Shout out to Ralph.
We love you, Ralph.
for always speaking life and like success over us. And I feel like it's a matter of time before that comes to fruition. And honestly, I personally want to see a live show too. Like, I just imagine us on a stage chatting, and I just imagine a lot of things. And I think it's where I've come to is I actually don't see any limits. Like, what I understand about Soul Dive, like you said, is that it's limitless. Like, we could really do anything. And it's taken a lot for me to get to this point where I believe that, where I could go is limitless. So that's huge in itself. Some words of encouragement that we can offer our listeners.
You start us off.
Yeah. All right. Let me start. Yeah. So I will start off by saying that introspection. I think. Sorry. Words of encouragement. I'll say my encouragement to people is that you can come to points of resolution, or you can get to a point of understanding something better if you just take the time for yourself. And I think my words of encouragement is I encourage people to honor themselves by giving them the time to introspect, by giving them time to heal, by giving them the time to rest, all of those things. I would just really push people to listen to themselves, to actually enact, because I believe that I believe we intuitively know what's best for us, and it's then a separate thing to actually action that. And I think that I encourage people to actually action the things that they understand about each other in order to see more for themselves, like more fulfillment and just health and wealth. So yeah,
absolutely. I definitely agree with all of that, Lydia. And for me, I guess encouragement that I would give is definitely to slow down, appreciate what you've done, rejuvenate, and then continue on with the good work and connections that you make in the work that you're doing. But I think that time of slowing down and really appreciating how far you've come, and then kind of building up that energy to keep going, is really important. So I would definitely encourage that to all our listeners in the year to come.
Really, really awesome points, guys. For me, it what I wrote down is keep on keeping on, because nothing changes overnight, but nothing stays the same either. You know, so it's those building blocks. Every day is a different day. Every day is a new opportunity to change your trajectory, you know, to what you want to be, what you want to do, how you want to act, and how you want to be perceived. And also to go with the flow. I think most of us are control freaks. We think that we can actually plan out our lives, you know, and it gets really depressing when things don't go our way. So to just understand that whatever's meant for you will never miss you, and whatever that isn't will fall away. So in trying to hold on, sometimes we hold on to things that weren't meant for us and keep us down for longer than just letting go.
Yeah.
Amen.
Really good. Wow, this has been an amazing episode, guys. We've gone a little bit over time, but hey, and we just wrapped up a whole year.
It was a big one.
Any year, hey.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for tuning in to everyone listening. We know there's many of you, many thousands of you listening. Yeah, we love our listeners. We'll be back next year, bigger and better. You're listening to Soul Dive. To have a good Christmas, everyone. Have a good New Year's. Look after yourselves, and we'll see you next year. Take care. You can say bye too, ladies.
I'm just waving,
yeah, we're just
really
waving.
awkwardly.
With thanks to the City of Brimbank across our neighbourhood and the world, Soul Dive with AD, Roshani and Lydia on Brimbank Live on Live FM.